The conference room on Concordia Prime Station was massive. It had to be. The Galactic Council needed space for beings of every shape and size. Giant aquatic tanks held the Thalassan delegates. Crystal formations glowed where the Luminar representatives stood. The insect-like Vrex filled an entire section with their hive-mind presence. Jake Morrison sat at the human table and tried not to show his exhaustion. He had been doing this job for 15 years, traveling from world to world, solving problems that aliens created but could not fix themselves. His hair had gone gray doing it. The wrinkles around his eyes told stories of sleepless nights spent preventing wars. Beside him sat Lisa Chen, a military advisor who had seen more combat than she cared to remember. On his other side was Paul Martinez, a scientist who studied alien cultures. All three of them wore the simple blue uniforms of Earth's diplomatic corps. Nothing fancy. Humans never tried to impress with clothing. They impressed with results. The past 30 years had been busy for humanity. After Earth made contact with the galaxy, things changed fast. Humans discovered they had a talent. They could talk to anyone. They could understand both sides of any argument. More importantly, they could find solutions that worked. 14 wars prevented. 72 trade disputes resolved. Countless first contacts handled smoothly. Humanity had become the galaxy's problem solvers. Need a mediator? Call the humans. Need someone to stop a war? Humans would do it. Need a plague cured? Human doctors would figure it out. Jake had been proud of this work. Earth had found its place in the stars, not as warriors, not as traders, as peacekeepers, as the ones who cared enough to help, but today felt different. Council Speaker Jextal, a massive Vrex with gleaming black chitin, stood before the assembly. Her voice echoed through translation devices in 1,000 languages. We have summoned humanity here today to discuss their future role in galactic affairs. Jake leaned forward. Something in her tone made him nervous. For 3 decades, humans have served this council well. You have solved our problems. You have kept the peace. You have made yourselves useful. Useful. The word hung in the air like poison. Therefore, Jextal continued, we have decided to formalize this arrangement. Humanity will surrender control of all military technology to Council oversight. You will accept permanent limits on your expansion beyond your current territories, and you will provide mandatory peacekeeping services to any Council member who requests them. The room fell silent. Jake felt his blood run cold. Ambassador Kalara of the Thalassans spoke next, her voice bubbling through water. This is for the greater good. Humanity has shown it excels at service. Why pretend you are anything else? One of the Luminar collective added its thoughts, light pulsing in patterns. You should be grateful. We are giving you purpose, a place in galactic civilization. Jake looked at Lisa. Her jaw was tight. Her hands were clenched into fists under the table. Paul stared at his datapad, his face pale. And if we refuse? Jake asked quietly. Jextal's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Then you will face economic sanctions, territorial restrictions, complete isolation from galactic civilization. You will have nothing. Nothing except Earth, Jake said. Earth is nothing, Jextal replied. One small world. What will you do alone? You need us. You need our trade, our technology, our civilization. Jake stood slowly. Lisa and Paul stood with him. The 3 humans gathered their datapads and documents. You have made a mistake, Jake said. His voice was calm but firm. You think we need you. You think because we helped you, we cannot survive without you. But you have forgotten something important. He looked around the room at all the alien faces. Some looked confused, others looked angry, none of them looked concerned. They should have been. We helped you because we wanted to, not because we needed to. For 30 years, we cleaned up your messes. We solved problems you created. We stopped wars you started. And we did it freely. We did it because we thought we were building friendships, building partnerships. Jake picked up his datapad. But you did not see us as partners. You saw us as servants, as tools. And tools do not get to say no. But we are not tools. We are people. And we are saying no. The room erupted in noise, aliens shouting in a dozen languages. Jek's Tal's voice rose above the chaos. You cannot refuse. You have obligations. We had obligations to partners, Jake said, not to masters. As of this moment, humanity withdraws from all galactic treaties. We withdraw from all peacekeeping operations. We withdraw from all diplomatic relations, effective immediately. He started walking toward the exit. Lisa and Chen followed. You will regret this, someone shouted. Jake stopped at the door. He turned back one last time. No, he said. You will. You have forgotten something about humans. We survived alone for thousands of years before we met you. We built cities. We built civilizations. We reached the stars by ourselves. We do not need you. But you need us. And you are about to remember why we are different. The three humans left the conference room. Behind them, the shouting continued. Threats were made, demands were issued. None of it mattered. The human ships docked at Concordia Prime powered up their engines. Within an hour, they were gone, jumping back toward Earth space, leaving the galaxy to solve its own problems. Jake sat in his cabin on the transport ship and looked out at the stars. He felt tired, sad, but also certain. They had made the right choice. Sometimes the only way to teach someone your value is to show them what life is like without you. The galaxy was about to learn that lesson, and the price would be high. 3 months passed since the humans left Concordia Prime. Captain Ryan Foster sat in the cockpit of his freighter ship, the Dancing Star, and watched a battle unfold in the distance. Vrex ships and Thalassan vessels tore each other apart near Waypoint 7 trading post. Ryan had been a space merchant for 12 years. He had seen peace in these sectors because humans kept the peace. Now he watched war. His ship's computer recorded everything, every explosion, every dying ship. All of it was being sent back to Earth. Humans were not interfering anymore, just watching. Just documenting what happened when they were not around. The Vrex-Thalassan border dispute had been quiet for 6 years. Humans had mediated between the two species. Jake Morrison himself had spent months learning both cultures, understanding both sides, finding compromises that worked. Now Jake was gone. The mediators were gone, and neither side could talk to the other without human translators who understood the deep cultural meanings behind their words. 3 colonies had already been destroyed. Millions were dead. Ryan watched another transport ship explode and felt sick. He could have helped. His ship had medical supplies. But his orders from Earth were clear. Observe only. Do not engage. Let them solve their own problems. On Earth, President Karen Walsh stood before the United Nations Assembly. Cameras broadcast her speech to every corner of the galaxy. Anyone who wanted to listen could hear her words. We offered partnership, she said. Her voice was strong but sad. You demanded servitude. For 30 years we gave freely of our time, our blood, and our expertise. We asked for nothing but respect. You responded with chains. You told us we existed to serve you, that we had no choice. She paused, looking directly into the camera. So now you will learn what the galaxy looks like without humans cleaning up your messes. We are not angry. We are not seeking revenge. We simply refuse to be slaves. Figure it out yourselves. The message ended. Across the galaxy, aliens watched and began to understand what they had done. But understanding came too late. Problems were exploding everywhere. The Luminar Collective had always relied on human logistics coordinators. Humans could navigate the complex cultural requirements of 70 different species. They knew which species could not eat in front of each other, which ones considered certain colors sacred, which trade protocols mattered to whom. Without humans, the Luminar trade networks collapsed. Ships arrived at the wrong times. Cargo was rejected for cultural violations. Within weeks, the economy was in chaos. On the Matharian homeworld, a plague broke out. It spread fast through their silicon-based biology. The Matharians called for help, but human medical teams were gone. Those teams had been special. They were the only ones who could work with both silicon-based and carbon-based life forms. Human doctors studied everything. They learned everything. They could cure anything. The Matharian government tried to handle it themselves. Then they asked the Vrex, then the Thalassans. Nobody could help. The plague spread. Millions died. By the time it burned itself out, the Matharian population was cut in half. A species called the Crix made first contact with galactic civilization. They were young, new to space travel, excited to meet others. The Thalassans sent a delegation to greet them, but the Thalassans did not understand Crix greeting rituals. The Crix raised their arms in what their culture considered a peaceful welcome. The Thalassans thought it was a threat. They fired. The Crix colony ship was destroyed. 5,000 beings died in minutes, all because nobody understood both cultures well enough to translate. Humans would have prevented it. Humans always did the research, always learned the customs, always made sure first contact went smoothly. Now the Crix were gone, wiped out before they barely began, and the Thalassans claimed it was self-defense. Pirate attacks increased everywhere. Human peacekeeping vessels used to patrol the trade routes, not as warriors, as guardians. Pirates knew that humans would respond to attacks. Humans had fast ships, good weapons, better tactics, but more than that, humans cared. They would chase pirates to the edge of space to protect innocent merchants. Now the humans were gone. Pirates attacked freely. Trade routes became dangerous. Merchants hired expensive guards or stopped traveling. The economy suffered even more. Ryan Foster barely escaped one pirate attack near the frontier. His ship was fast but not armed. He ran, and the pirates chased until they reached the edge of Earth's protected space. Then they stopped. Earth had made clear that human territory was off limits. Any attack on human ships or colonies would be answered with force. But outside that boundary, the galaxy was on its own. Back on Earth, not everyone agreed with the withdrawal. Senator Greg Davis stood in Congress and argued loudly. "We have a moral obligation to help. People are dying. Entire species are being wiped out. How can we just watch?" Director Amy Rodriguez answered him calmly. "We tried moral obligation for 30 years. They responded with demands for servitude. We are not watching because we want them to suffer. We are watching because they need to learn. You cannot help someone who sees you as a tool. You can only help someone who sees you as a person." "But the deaths," Greg started. "Are not our fault," Amy interrupted. "We did not start these wars. We did not create these problems. We only solved them before. And we solved them freely. Now we have stopped. If that causes problems, the fault lies with those who took our help for granted." The debate continued. Earth was divided. Some people wanted to go back, to help, to save lives. Others understood that going back now would prove the aliens right, that humans would always come running, that they could be taken for granted forever. President Walsh made the final decision. Humanity would not return, not until the galaxy learned its lesson. Delegations from various alien governments arrived at Earth. They came with demands, with threats, with promises of economic warfare. Each delegation was met at the edge of the solar system by a polite but firm message. They were not allowed to pass. The message they received was simple. Submit a formal request for services. Include proposed compensation. Include recognition of humanity's equal status and sovereign rights. We will consider it. Until then, solve your own problems. Every delegation returned home empty-handed. None of them were willing to admit humans as equals. Their pride would not allow it. So they went home and watched their civilizations burn. 1 year after the humans left, 18 small wars raged across the galaxy. The economy had shrunk by 30%. 2 entire species had gone extinct in conflicts. Trade routes were abandoned. Plague and famine spread unchecked. The great powers of the galaxy were exhausted. The Vrex had lost dozens of worlds. The Thalassans were fighting civil wars within their own empire. The Luminar Collective had broken into pieces. And somewhere on Earth, Jake Morrison drank coffee in a quiet cafe in Geneva and read the reports. He felt sad for all the death, but he also felt certain. They were learning. The hard way, but they were learning. The galaxy was paying the price for its arrogance, and the bill was still coming due. 1 year had passed since humanity walked away. Colonel Lisa Chen sat in her office at Earth Defense Command in Colorado and reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The news was grim. Everywhere she looked, the galaxy was tearing itself apart. She had compiled a list: 18 active wars, economic collapse in 40 sectors, food shortages on 100 worlds, pirate attacks up 400%. And now, something new. Something worse. Lisa picked up her tablet and called Jake Morrison. He answered from his apartment in Geneva, looking older than his years. "You need to see this," she said. The report appeared on Jake's screen. The Vrex Hive had attempted to colonize a new world in the Andromeda expanse. They were desperate. The war with the Thalassans had destroyed so many of their colonies. They needed resources. They needed space. They needed it fast. So they skipped the surveys, the detailed analysis, the careful study that humans always insisted on. They just sent their colony fleet and started building. 3 days later, something woke up. The colonists called it the Devourer, an ancient weapon system left behind by a civilization that died millions of years ago. Automated. Powerful. Deadly. It woke up when the Vrex ships approached, and it did what it was programmed to do. It killed them all. The entire Vrex colony fleet was destroyed in hours, 12,000 beings dead. But the Devourer did not stop. It followed the Vrex back to their space, and it began spreading, consuming, destroying. In 2 weeks, 3 more Vrex worlds fell. The Devourer turned planets into dead rocks. It dismantled stations. It hunted down ships. Nothing the Vrex threw at it could stop it. Their weapons bounced off. Their tactics failed. The entity was too advanced, too powerful. The Vrex Queen herself sent a message to Earth. It was transmitted on all frequencies. Desperate. Begging. "We need your help. Please. We are dying. We were wrong. We admit it. Please help us." President Walsh received the message in the Oval Office. She sat with her advisors and discussed it for hours. Finally, she composed a response. It was broadcast across the galaxy. "You demanded we become your servants. You valued us as tools, not people. Tools do not have the luxury of saying no, but we are not tools. We are people, and we said no. If you want our help, submit a formal request. Recognize humanity's sovereignty. Recognize our equal status, or find your own solution." The response was harsh but necessary. Walsh knew it. She had to stay firm. If humanity came running at the first crisis, they would prove the aliens right, that humans could always be counted on, that they could be taken for granted. The Vrex Queen refused to submit the formal request. Pride. Even facing extinction, she could not admit humans as equals. So, the Devourer continued its rampage. World after world fell. The Vrex population was being wiped out. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened. Several smaller species began submitting proper requests for human assistance. These were not the great powers. These were minor worlds, small civilizations, species that had always treated humans with respect. The Frontier Alliance was the first, a coalition of 12 small species that had never demanded anything from Earth. They had traded fairly, spoken politely, treated human diplomats as partners, not servants. Now they came to Earth with a formal request. They offered fair payment. They recognized human sovereignty. They asked for help defending their space from pirates and protecting their trade routes. Earth accepted. Admiral Steve Carter took command of a small fleet and deployed to Alliance space. He did not go to solve all their problems. He went to work with them, to teach them, to be a partner. Captain Ryan Foster's ship, the Dancing Star, joined a convoy of human and Alliance vessels. They patrolled together, fought pirates together, shared tactics and technology. It was cooperation, real cooperation. Not humans doing everything while aliens watched. The major powers noticed. They saw the Alliance territories becoming safer, more stable, more prosperous, all because they had humbled themselves enough to ask nicely, to offer fair terms, to treat humans with respect. But still, the great powers refused. The Thalassan Empire was tearing itself apart in civil war. Without human mediators, the clan divisions that Jake Morrison had carefully managed for years exploded into violence. Brother fought brother. Entire families were wiped out. The Empire's population was dropping fast. The Luminar Collective had splintered into 17 different factions, each one claiming to be the true collective, each one fighting the others. Their beautiful crystal cities were being shattered in battles, their art, their culture, their history, all being destroyed because they could not work together without humans to coordinate them. And the Devourer kept spreading. It had consumed 12 Rex worlds now. The ancient weapon was unstoppable. Researchers tried to study it from a distance. They discovered it was triggered by a specific energy signature. The same signature produced by Vrex engines, the same type of engine that half the galaxy used because it was cheap and efficient. Dr. Helen Brooks read the reports at her lab on Mars. She was Earth's leading expert on ancient alien technology. She studied the data carefully. Then she realized something terrible. The Devourer was not just targeting the Vrex anymore. It was heading toward neutral space, toward the young Krix survivors who had fled after the Thalassan attack, toward the Frontier Alliance worlds that used similar engines, toward colonies that had nothing to do with the Vrex. Helen sent an urgent message to Earth Defense Command. The Devourer was not angry. It was not evil. It was just a machine following its programming. Millions of years ago, some ancient species had built it to defend against an enemy that used those engine signatures. That enemy was long dead, but the machine was still working, still hunting, still killing, and it would not stop until someone shut it down. Helen knew how to stop it. The solution was in the data, a specific sequence of commands, a shutdown protocol built into the ancient system. But delivering that sequence would require ships capable of getting close enough. Ships with the right technology, the right tactics, the right crew skills. In short, it required humans, or species working with humans. Nobody else had the combination of technical skill, tactical flexibility, and courage needed for the mission. The Galactic Council held an emergency session. What was left of it, anyway. The beautiful station at Concordia Prime was damaged from neglect. Systems were failing. The Council itself was a shadow of what it had been. Representatives from the great powers sat in their sections and argued, blamed each other, accomplished nothing. Finally, Council Speaker Jextal stood. She was thinner now, weaker. Her chitin was dull from stress. Her hive had lost so much, and her pride had cost even more. We were wrong, she said simply. The room fell silent. Those two words had never been spoken before in council chambers. Ambassador Kalara of the Thalassans rose from her tank. We treated humans as tools. We demanded service as if it was owed to us. We forgot that they were helping us freely, that they deserved respect. One of the Luminar representatives pulsed light in agreement. We must make this right. Jextal looked around the room. I propose a new treaty, one that recognizes humanity as our equal, one that offers fair compensation for their services, one that formally apologizes for our attempted coercion. The vote was taken. For the first time in the Council's history, it was unanimous. Every species agreed. Even those who had been most arrogant, even those who had demanded human servitude. Desperation had taught them humility. Disaster had taught them respect. A delegation was prepared, the finest diplomats, the most humble representatives. They were given clear instructions. Go to Earth. Wait as long as necessary. Do not demand. Do not threaten. Ask, politely, humbly, truthfully. The delegation departed for Earth. Behind them, the galaxy continued to burn. The Devourer spread. The wars raged. The plagues killed. Everything was falling apart. But for the first time in a year, there was hope. Maybe the humans would listen. Maybe they would return. Maybe it was not too late to save what remained of galactic civilization. The ships jumped to faster-than-light speed, racing toward the one species that could help. The species they had scorned. The species they now desperately needed. The species that held the fate of the galaxy in their hands. The alien delegation arrived at Luna Station and waited. They had expected to be turned away immediately. Instead, they received a simple message. Wait here. Your request is being considered. So they waited. Days became weeks. 3 weeks passed while Earth's government debated behind closed doors. The delegates stayed in their ships, docked at the station, watching Earth spin below them. Some grew frustrated. Others remained patient. All of them understood they had no choice. Inside the halls of Earth's government, the debate was intense. President Walsh sat at the head of a long table. Jake Morrison had been brought out of retirement for this. Lisa Chen was there. Amy Rodriguez. Senator Greg Davis. Every major leader and advisor. We have proven our point, Greg argued. The galaxy has learned its lesson. Millions are dying. We have the power to help. We should help. Helping now, without proper terms, would undo everything, Amy countered. They would learn that all they need to do is wait, that eventually we will come running. We need clear agreements, binding treaties, real respect. Jake Morrison listened to both sides. Finally, he spoke. The question is not whether we help. The question is how. Do we return as servants or as partners? Do we enable their dependence or build their independence? President Walsh nodded slowly. We need terms, clear terms, not exploitation in reverse, true partnership, mutual obligations, defined limits. The discussions continued for days. Earth's lawyers and diplomats crafted a proposal. It was comprehensive, detailed, fair but firm. It recognized human sovereignty completely. It established payment systems for human services. It limited how often assistance could be requested. It included training programs so aliens could eventually handle their own problems. It created a new council structure with humanity as a permanent, equal member. Most importantly, it included consequences. If the terms were violated, humanity could withdraw again. No questions asked. Jake Morrison reviewed the final document and smiled. This is good. This is what partnership looks like. The aliens were finally invited to Earth. They landed in Geneva, in the same building where the old United Nations had met. The negotiation room was simple, no grand displays, no attempt to impress, just a table and chairs and people ready to talk. Jake led the human delegation. Across from him sat Ambassador Kalara, Council Speaker Jextal, and representatives from a dozen other species. They looked tired, defeated, desperate. "Thank you for seeing us," Kalara began. Her voice was quiet, humble. "We come to apologize. We treated you badly. We saw you as servants, not partners. We were wrong." Jextal added, "We have prepared a treaty. It recognizes your sovereignty, your equal status. It offers fair compensation. It guarantees you a voice in galactic affairs." Jake took the document they offered. He read it carefully. It was surprisingly good. They had clearly thought hard about what to offer, but it was not enough. "This is a start," Jake said, "but we need more. We need clear limits. We need to know that our help is requested, not demanded. We need training programs so you can handle problems yourselves. We need consequences if the terms are broken." He slid Earth's counter-proposal across the table. The aliens read it. Some looked shocked at the detail. Others looked relieved that humans were taking this seriously. The negotiations lasted 2 weeks, back and forth, discussing every clause, every term, every obligation. It was not easy. There were disagreements, moments of tension, but everyone stayed at the table. Everyone kept talking. Finally, they had a draft that both sides could accept, the Terra Accords, a new treaty that would reshape galactic civilization. But before it could be signed, Dr. Helen Brooks entered the room. She had been studying the Devourer non-stop. Now she had news. "The Devourer will reach Frontier Alliance space in 3 weeks," she said without preamble. "It will reach the surviving Crix colonies in 5 weeks. It will enter Thalassen core territory in 2 months. And it is accelerating." The room went silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Even if the treaty was signed today, there might not be a galaxy left to save. "Can it be stopped?" President Walsh asked. Helen nodded. "Yes, I have the shutdown sequence. But delivering it requires getting close to the Devourer's core. Very close. The ship doing it will face massive defensive systems, ancient weapons that are still functional. It is a suicide mission without the right technology and tactics." "How many ships would we need?" Admiral Steve Carter asked. "A full task force, human ships working with alien vessels. We need human technical skills to deliver the sequence. We need alien knowledge of the sectors it is moving through. We need combined firepower to fight through its defenses. We need true cooperation." Jake looked at the aliens. "So, we have a treaty almost ready to sign, and we have an immediate crisis that requires the exact kind of partnership this treaty describes. The question is, do we trust each other enough to start now?" Kalara did something no Thalassan had ever done in front of aliens. She lowered herself in her tank, a profound gesture of respect in her culture. "We trust you. More than that, we need you. Not as servants, as partners. Please, help us save what remains." President Walsh made the decision. "We signed the preliminary accords today. The full treaty will be ratified later, but we act now, together, as partners." The documents were signed within hours. Not the full treaty, but enough. An agreement to work together, to help each other, to build something new from the ashes of the old. Jake Morrison watched the aliens sign their names in a dozen different scripts. He felt the weight of history. This was the moment everything changed. Not when humans walked away, but when they came back, on their own terms. Admiral Steve Carter immediately began organizing the task force. Human ships from Earth's defense fleet, Thalassan cruisers, Vrex hunter-killers, Luminar support vessels, Frontier Alliance scouts, even some civilian ships like Ryan Foster's Dancing Star, which would handle refugee rescue operations. The fleet assembled at the border of neutral space. It was the largest combined force ever created. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species, all of them flying under a new flag, the Terra Alliance, the first true partnership fleet in galactic history. Dr. Helen Brooks boarded the flagship. the Earth vessel Endeavor. She brought her shutdown sequence and her courage. She would personally deliver the code to the Devourer's core if necessary. Commander Pete Williams assembled his strike team. Special Forces soldiers from Earth, Vrex warriors, Thalassan shock troops. They trained together for 3 days, learning each other's tactics, building trust, becoming a team. Captain Ryan Foster prepared his ship for refugee operations. His cargo holds were converted to temporary living spaces. Medical supplies were loaded, food and water stockpiled. If they succeeded against the Devourer, there would be survivors who needed help. He intended to be ready. On Earth, people watched the preparations with mixed feelings. Some were excited. Humanity was returning to the stars as partners, not servants. Others were nervous. This was the first real test. Would the alliance hold? Would the aliens keep their promises? President Walsh addressed the world one final time before the fleet departed. We walked away because we had to teach a lesson, to demand respect. That lesson has been learned. Now we return, not to save the galaxy alone, but to save it together, not as masters or servants, but as equals, as partners, as friends. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading toward the Devourer, heading toward the biggest battle any of them had ever faced, heading toward the future. Jake Morrison watched from the command deck of the Endeavor. He was 62 years old. His hair was completely white now. His body was tired, but his spirit was strong. They had made it. They had walked away. They had come back. And they had done it on their own terms. Now they just had to survive what came next. The combined fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Devourer's territory. Admiral Steve Carter stood on the bridge of the Endeavor and studied the sensor readings. What he saw made his blood run cold. The Devourer had consumed 15 Virex worlds now. Each planet was stripped to its core. All life gone. All structures dismantled. The ancient weapon system was efficient and thorough. And it was heading toward populated space at increasing speed. "All ships, battle positions," Steve ordered. "Remember the plan. We fight our way to the core. The strike team delivers the shutdown sequence. We cover their retreat. Nobody does anything heroic. We work together or we die together." The fleet moved forward. Human cruisers took point positions. Their shields were strongest. Thalassan ships flanked them. Their weapons had the longest range. Vrex hunter-killers scattered in attack patterns. Their speed was unmatched. Luminar support vessels stayed in the center, ready to provide power boosts and repairs to any ship that needed them. It was beautiful. Dozens of species working as one unit, each contributing their strengths, each covering another's weaknesses. This was what humans had always tried to teach: cooperation, partnership, unity. The Devourer detected them. Ancient defense systems came online. Weapons that had not fired in millions of years activated and aimed. The first volley of enemy fire struck the fleet's shields. "Return fire," Steve ordered. The combined firepower of the Alliance fleet lit up space. Missiles, energy beams, kinetic projectiles. Everything they had was thrown at the Devourer's outer defenses. Slowly, the ancient shields began to weaken. Dr. Helen Brooks watched from the tactical station. "We need to get within 5 kilometers of the core. That is close enough for me to transmit the shutdown sequence directly into its control systems." 5 kilometers, Steve repeated. "Through all those defenses. Pete, are you ready?" Commander Pete Williams checked his strike team one last time. 20 soldiers, human, Vrex, Thalassan, and Luminar. The best fighters from each species. They wore specialized armor and carried the most advanced weapons. Their mission was simple but deadly. Get Helen to the core. Keep her alive long enough to transmit the sequence. Get out. "We are ready, sir," Pete replied. The fleet pushed deeper into Devourer territory. Ships were hit. Shields failed. The human cruiser Valiant took a direct hit that cracked its hull. A Thalassan destroyer lost power and had to be towed back. 3 Vrex ships were destroyed in a coordinated enemy strike, but the fleet kept going. When one ship fell back damaged, another moved up to take its place. When shields weakened, others shared their power. They protected each other. They fought for each other. Captain Ryan Foster flew his dancing star through the chaos. His job was to pick up survivors from damaged ships. He rescued a Vrex crew whose engines had exploded. He pulled Thalassan soldiers from a dying cruiser. He saved a Luminar pilot whose fighter had been hit. All species, all equals, all worth saving. The strike team launched in a small, fast shuttle. Pete Williams piloted while Helen sat in the back with her equipment. The other 18 soldiers were crammed into every available space. They flew through the gap the fleet had created in the Devourer's defenses. Enemy fire chased them. Ancient automated turrets tracked their movement. A Vrex soldier named Crix fired back, destroying 2 turrets with perfect shots. A Thalassan warrior named Vela used her ship hacking skills to shut down 3 more defense systems remotely. A human corporal named Danny Chen repaired damage to their shields while they flew. They worked together, each person doing what they did best. No ego, no competition, just teamwork. The shuttle reached the outer wall of the Devourer's core. Pete set the ship down hard. The team poured out, weapons ready. They were inside an ancient facility that had not seen living beings in millions of years. Dust and silence filled the corridors. Helen led them deeper. Her scanner showed the way to the central control node. 2 kilometers through twisting passages. 2 kilometers of unknown dangers. They encountered automated defenders. Ancient robots that activated when they sensed intruders. The team fought their way through. A Luminar soldier named Lux used light pulses to blind the robot's sensors. Pete and Danny provided covering fire. The Vrex and Thalassan warriors destroyed the robots with brutal efficiency. Casualties mounted. A human soldier was killed by a robot's energy weapon. A Vrex warrior fell defending Helen from an ambush. A Thalassan scout was crushed by falling debris. Each death hurt, but they kept moving. They had come too far to stop. Finally, they reached the central control node. It was a massive sphere of ancient technology. Lights pulsed across its surface in patterns nobody understood. Helen set up her equipment and began transmitting the shutdown sequence. "How long?" Pete asked, guarding the entrance. 5 minutes, Helen replied, her fingers flying over her console. Those 5 minutes felt like hours. More robots came. The team fought them off. Ammunition ran low. Soldiers were wounded, but they held the line. Nobody let anything through to Helen. Outside, the fleet continued its desperate battle. Ships were dying. Thousands were dead, but they fought on. They had to give the strike team time. "Sequence is 60% complete," Helen called out. A massive robot appeared, bigger than the others, more heavily armed. It targeted Helen directly. Pete threw himself in front of her, taking the blast meant for her. He went down hard, his armor scorched. "Keep going!" he shouted through the pain. The team surrounded Helen. They formed a wall of bodies between her and the threats. They would die before they let anything reach her. 80%. A Luminar soldier named Prax channeled all his remaining energy into a massive light burst that destroyed 3 robots at once. The effort killed him. He fell with a smile, knowing he had bought precious seconds. 95%. The remaining team members fired their last ammunition, threw their last grenades, fought with whatever they had left. Some fought hand-to-hand against machines that felt no pain. 100%. Sequence transmitted. The Devourer shuddered. Every light in the facility went dark. The robots froze mid-attack. The ancient weapon system processed the shutdown sequence and recognized it as a valid command from its long-dead creators. Then it powered down. All of it. Every weapon, every defense, every system. The Devourer went dormant after millions of years of operation. Outside, the fleet saw the enemy fire stop. Sensors showed the massive entity going dark. Cheers erupted across every ship. They had won. But the victory had cost them. The strike team had 17 casualties out of 20 members. Pete Williams was badly wounded but alive. Helen Brooks had a broken arm and burns but had succeeded. The survivors limped back to their shuttle and flew to the fleet. The fleet began rescue operations immediately. Captain Ryan Foster was everywhere. His dancing star pulled survivors from damaged ships, collected bodies of the fallen, transported wounded to medical vessels. He worked alongside alien crews, all of them united in grief and relief. The Vrex Queen arrived personally to thank the fleet. Her remaining worlds were saved. Her species would survive. She met Jake Morrison on the Endeavor and performed a gesture no Vrex Queen had done in 10,000 years. She lowered her crown to the deck. "You saved us," she said simply. "When we deserved nothing, when we had wronged you, you still saved us." Jake helped her raise her crown. "We are partners now. Partners help each other." The fleet returned to civilized space as heroes. Every world they passed celebrated, not just human victory, alliance victory, the victory of cooperation over chaos, of partnership over pride. The full Terra Accords were ratified in a ceremony on Earth. Every species sent representatives. They signed a treaty that would reshape galactic civilization. Humans were given equal status. Fair compensation systems were established. Training programs were created. The Galactic Council was reformed with humanity as a permanent member. But the treaty also did something more. It established that help must be requested, not demanded. That all species should work to solve their own problems. That dependency was not healthy for anyone. The galaxy would learn to stand on its own feet with humans as partners and teachers, not as servants or saviors. Jake Morrison retired to a small colony world on the edge of Frontier Alliance space. He spent his days writing his memoirs. The book became required reading across the galaxy. The last line read, "They thought we needed them. We proved they needed us." But the real lesson was simpler. We all need each other, and that only works when everyone remembers it. On Earth, children studied the withdrawal crisis in school. They learned about dignity, about standing up for what was right even when it was hard, about the difference between service and servitude. In space, mixed species crews worked together on ships flying alliance flags. Human doctors taught alien medical students. Human engineers worked alongside alien designers. Human diplomats trained alien negotiators. The galaxy was learning. President Karen Walsh stood before the new Galactic Council 5 years after the withdrawal. She looked out at representatives from 100 species and smiled. "We walked away because you forgot our value," she said. "We returned because you remembered. Now we build something new. Not a galaxy where one species fixes everyone's problems, but a galaxy where we all work together, where we all contribute, where we all matter." The applause was unanimous. From species that had once demanded human servitude, from species that had taken humans for granted, they applauded because they had learned, the hard way, the expensive way, but they had learned. And when the next crisis came, because crises always come, humanity did not face it alone. Partners stood beside them, equals fighting together, building together, growing together. The galaxy had paid a terrible price for its arrogance, millions dead, worlds destroyed, species lost. But from that price came something valuable. True partnership, true respect, true cooperation. Humanity had walked away, and in doing so, they had saved not just themselves, but the entire galaxy. By refusing to be servants, they had taught everyone to be partners. And that lesson, bought with blood and pain, would shape galactic civilization for millions of years to come.